Hey all, we're back in the garage. Mask Monday, you wore us down. We're gonna try. All right, so we're gonna kind of rehaul the Michael Myers Halloween Kills mask. So many people have asked us to do this, so we're gonna go ahead and do it. I do think it's pretty strange doing it before the movie's even out, but everybody wants to see it. Everybody on my Instagram feed is posting pictures of this mask over and over again, so I do get exposed to it a lot. But no one's seen the movie yet that's making these masks, and I kind of think you should kind of wait until afterwards. That being said, I'm not gonna try to make this mask look screen accurate. I'm just gonna be doing this for fun. This was the first test paint that I did. Didn't finish it, but I just wanted to figure out what method I was gonna use. And I'm happy that I did, because I ended up not being as happy with this one as I did the second one. But the method I used for this one was basically, I sprayed it all white, and it was just total white, and then I started from scratch, which is how I've painted every other mask that I've ever rehauled or repainted. And then what I did was I did some weathering with just the regular acrylic water-based paints, thinned down with water, which is how most people usually weather a Myers mask, and how I did the 78. And that was, pretty effective, I guess. And then I did it on this side as well. But what I did here was I stippled a bunch of different shades of brown, maybe not a bunch, but 2 or 3 different shades of brown, and then I stippled black on top to make it look charred. And I do prefer it to the stock version, but for me it's a little too gray. I was kind of thinking that if it was if it had soot and char and ash and stuff all over it, it would be dark gray looking. And I think some of the posters, it kind of looks like that. But when I did the second way, I wanted to just try a different method, because really I was more interested in how to do the right side faster and easier. But I decided not to worry about painting it all, and I wanted it to be more yellow anyways. So this was the second one that I did that I actually ended up preferring the paint job to. Again, not finished yet, but and you can see this mask, it has a flaw. That's why I had 2 laying around, because I took this one home from Nightmare because it was just flawed. You could fix this though, it's just a fold, but if you grab it like that and you pinch it, you can see you can fix that. But eventually it's gonna pop back out, especially because it's been sitting here in the hot garage. But if you want, you can pinch that and just hit it with a hairdryer for a while, and it'll stay that way. There's no point for me to do all that work or put any more heat into this garage, because it's just a test paint job. But what I did for this one was, you can probably tell I left the stock paint job on this side more or less, and I didn't even bother making new blood or anything, because my main issue with this mask is how yellow this side is. It is this kind of toxic yellow on this side. And again, maybe that's how it looks in the movie. We don't know, we haven't seen the movie, so it could actually be closer to this yellow look than what I end up doing. But just, again, it's me personally, what I think would make the mask look cooler is getting rid of all that yellow. So I just airbrushed over all the yellow with brown, and then I did a rub out, a black rub out, ink rub out of the entire mask, which filled in the details and dirtied up this side, but it kept that kind of yellowed look to it. And when latex gets smoke and stuff all over it, it yellows. So I think it makes sense for it to be this yellow color. This base doesn't bother me. A lot of people don't like this side. They don't like how yellow it is. The other ones are all much more white than this, but I think that it should be yellowed, and I think it will look yellowed in the movie. And I don't know, you might like this one better. You might like it more white like that. I just decided that not only did I prefer this paint job to that one, it was much easier. I did it much quicker. And what I really like about this paint job is I think that anybody can do it. But even if you didn't want to use an airbrush, you could do this with a brush, but I am going to use the airbrush because it's faster and easier. Okay, so the first step is just to take the first layer of hair off. Pretty much I'm just gonna grab it and then start tugging and pull away. I'll start from this side and work my way around. I am hoping that when I take this first layer off, it'll look similar to when I took the first layer of this mask off, because if it does, I'm not gonna bother gluing another layer back on, because I actually like the way that it turned out with that one missing layer. If it's all burnt like that, it leaves this kind of nasty, gluey, splotches of hair, and I think that it works really well for the mask, and it didn't mess with the overall shape to me. Someone had a good suggestion on the 78 Myers mask that if the hair has a hard time coming off that you can kind of soak it in water. And I've tried that since, and it works pretty well. So I don't know if I'll have to do that or not, but let's go ahead and just start ripping the hair off. I use like glue to get this burnt effect, I think, so it can kind of stick to the other layers, obviously. Cool. I'm thinking, I don't know, this was bothering me. I was like trying to get it off and I couldn't, but maybe I'll leave it there. Again, it's like that got burned off, but this, you know, somehow survived, or maybe once I paint it, it'll look really nasty and gross. But I think I might end up putting a little bit of hair there anyways. So yeah, that's good for me. I'm gonna put some tape on it like I did this first one, and I'm just gonna go in and start the paint job. If I was just using ink, I wouldn't even worry about taping it. Really, because I'm gonna be using latex paint, I don't want to get like just a bunch of latex, like clumpy latex in it. The color is going to obviously be brown. It's really not that big of a deal. And on the first, like this other one, I didn't even tape this one off, and it turned out fine. So maybe I'm wasting my time. Never mind, Noah, we're not going to tape it. All right, let's paint it. All right, so we're gonna start with the paint job. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna keep this as simple as possible. This is just like maybe a 3 or 4 step process from beginning to end. I might throw in a couple different colors, but mostly all I'm gonna use today is Far Gone. Again, these are the Mabry Monsters Nightshades for motion picture effects that we carry at Nightmare Toys. Far Gone is the main color I'm gonna use today, and the other one I'm gonna use is black. Or Black Sabbath. And then I also, just to kind of, I'm probably not going to touch these paints, but I might like tint them up, or like tint the Far Gone up or down with them. This is a good color scheme if you wanted to really take your time and go at it with a lot of different layers of paint, either with an airbrush or a paintbrush or stippling. Those of you who do the 2018 rehauls, or if you want to do a 2018 rehaul anyways, I think that that's also a good palette for that. All right, so the first step is going to be just airbrushing the brown. Again, I'm going to use Far Gone. It's a dark brown, and I'm just going to spray that over all the yellow spots. They've already kind of established where those details need to go in the sculpt, so there's no point in kind of painting over the entire thing. I'm just going to follow their paint job, but I'm just going to try to take my time with it, be a little bit more artsy with it, and cover up the yellow with brown. So right now I'm trying to decide if I should add any more. I might go in with a slightly darker brown. I don't know if you probably noticed, but I started with all decomp, and then I mixed like a good amount of Far Gone into it because it was a little just like too straight brown. So the Far Gone kind of darkened it and graded up a little bit. I'm not sure if just the rub out is gonna help. I think one thing I wanna do now that I'm looking at it like this is fill in like this white spot kind of right there. Looks a little too like clowny, so I'm just gonna make that a little darker brown. Yeah, and I think there's still like some yellow, so yeah, I think I still have a little bit of work to do with the brown. I might go back and forth with like this brown and then maybe a little bit slightly darker brown. And again, I'm only using one color, but because there's all that yellow in certain spots and then it's like darker in other spots, the way that it sits on it looks differently. And then also like the more I go over the spot with brown, obviously the darker brown it's gonna be, whereas I'm like leaving these spots that I want to be open more yellow. So it still has like a yellow look to it, just not that crazy like toxic neon yellow that it had before. But I don't want to go too crazy though, because again, whenever I do that black rub out, it is going to significantly darken everything. And I do like how kind of like golden brown, like cooked this thing looks. So I'm not going to go crazy. I'm pretty much done. I'm just going to touch up a couple spots. I always kind of give it a minute and look at it, and I'll see things differently. So I think I'm pretty much done with the brown. I'm going to darken up this section by the hairline a little bit more in case I don't end up. And I think the latex is actually kind of cool for it. So I'm just going to darken that up a little bit. But again, you can see these spots where I pretty much like left it so that it looks more kind of like, you know, like when a marshmallow gets like, you know, thrown in a fire and like burnt up, it gets that really gross charred like brown look. And that's kind of what I was trying to go for here. And then once I do that rub out, everything's going to darken up and the details will get filled in. And then the last thing I'll do with the paint is stipple some black on to make it look nice and charred. So now we have to let that dry. I'm gonna stick this fan on it and we're gonna leave it for at least an hour. If it was winter, I would want to leave this overnight before I did this, but because it's like so incredibly hot, I think that we should be safe to do the rub out. So we let this dry for about an hour. I did like a little test on it. I just like put some alcohol on a sponge and I went to like a not important spot and kind of rubbed it over. And I don't think it like took paint off of it. So I think that we should be safe. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rub out. As far as the process for the rub out, I'm gonna do just a straight black ink diluted with alcohol. And the ratio you kind of want to use for this, as far as I understand it, is like 30% ink and like 70% alcohol. And then what I'll do is I'll just put like a few droppers full in here until there's at least a little bit. Honestly, I'd like a smaller cup, but it is what it is. And then now I'm just gonna hit it with a bunch of alcohol. And again, I wanna basically just eyeball like 70% more than that. So, and then I'm gonna kind of run it on like the side of the cup and make sure it's not too thin. I don't want it to be very thick, but I wanna make sure it's not too thin as well. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my airbrush. I'm gonna spray the ink all over the mask. I'm especially gonna make sure that I get it in the details. And I'm gonna cover this mask with black, and then I'm gonna let that pretty much dry. I might wait till, like if it's a little shiny, that's okay, but I don't want it to be like dripping wet or anything like that. I want it to be kind of dry. Then after I spray all the black, then I'll take just the alcohol, I'll wring out the sponge, and then I'm gonna just try to take a lot of the black off, but I wanna leave it in the details. So if you look at this one, this was just the stock paint job on this side, and all I did was the rub out. And so if all goes as planned like it did last time, it should just fill in all these details. Another cool thing about doing this rub out is it's gonna make the blood look a lot more realistic. One of my issues with the stock one, besides the yellow, is the super bright blood. But when you do the rub out on it, it actually darkens it and brings it together to where I'm not even gonna like make blood and put it on at the end. I'm just gonna use the blood that they put on there. So I'm just cleaning it up a little more. You do have to be careful at this point though. It's when it becomes a little difficult not to mess it up. But again, you can always like stipple it if you kind of think you lost too much. Okay, there we go. Now it's popping out more. And again, I like the yellow tone to it. That's why I didn't bother doing another base coat. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and call that for the rub out after I hit it a little more. Okay, so we let the ink dry. I'm pretty happy with it. Like I always kind of take a step back and like, you don't really have to let the ink dry that much, honestly, but it's good to just give it 5-10 minutes, make sure you're happy with it before we move on to the next step. And I'm, for all intents and purposes, pretty happy with it. I really like what the black rub out did to this side. It really darkened it up, but because I used a brighter brown, that stuff still shines through. So the next step is gonna be stippling black. As far as what paint to use, I'm gonna use the Mabry Monsters Black Sabbath, just black latex paint. The latex paint, you always wanna use latex paint because it sticks to the latex and the other paint better, and also it'll stay stretchy, so if you take it on and off, it's not gonna crack. That's the main thing. And what I mean by stipple is just taking a sponge, getting some paint on it, and just hitting it like that, so it only hits the highest points. And I'm gonna cut a little piece of sponge off so I can really control it, and it's only gonna hit the high points, so it's just gonna leave this like charred look on the top. And I'll go into the eyelids and I'll stipple those. I'll stipple some here. Anywhere where there's that hardcore like char sculpted in it, I'm just gonna stipple a little black on top, and then that'll add like a third or fourth color to it, and it'll kind of bring it all together. When you're doing the stipple, you wanna kinda hold it in a way that gives you like a concave shape to it. Because if you go like this, there's a lot of different variables, especially like a cut, jagged sponge that could go kind of all over. You can control it a lot better if you just squeeze it like that. Okay, so we're all done with the paint job. The final step before I can hair it is just to finish it and seal the mask. I'm using matte finish. To me, it should have a matte finish, especially if it's been like burned up and it's been all smoky and ashy. I wouldn't think that it would be like shiny. It would be more dull and muted. You don't want to go crazy heavy with this. You just need a good layer on it to seal up the paint job. So again, don't go crazy heavy. If you don't go crazy heavy, then it should be stretchy enough to put on and off and all that. But a lot of people, like, they'll say, what do you seal your masks with? And I'll tell them this, and they'll say, yeah, that worked until I picked it up and it like cracked all over the place. And it's like, well, you probably just doused it in that finish then. You're basically putting a layer of glue on top of it. So just hit it lightly. And then if you're like me and you have sensitive fingers, you can get this silly looking gun attachment thing from Amazon. So that's all finished up. We're just gonna give it like 10 minutes to dry just to be safe before I start gluing the hair on. So with the Krylon matte finish, you really need, I'd say this about everything, but really shake it really well. Shake it up and then roll it upside down and shake it and shake it. I shake it for like 2 minutes, because if you don't shake matte finish up really well, especially if it's been sitting for a long time, which usually it's gonna be, when you spray it out, it'll spray like white and it won't like dry translucent. It'll be white and you'll have to start your entire paint job over again. So just really make sure you shake the matte finish up very well and roll it around, shake it some more, roll it around, shake it some more, and then you're good to go. Okay, so we're ready to do the hair. Hopefully you saved your hair from earlier, because you'll need it to glue back on. As I said before, I'm not gonna glue all the hair back on this side. I'm probably gonna take like a couple of, we're gonna take like a couple of these burn ends or something and like put them in like some strategic spots. But I am gonna start by rehairing this side. You can pretty much follow just from like that glue line that was left over where I'm gonna put the hair back. But I only really need to make it from like here to here just to cover this spot up and kind of patch that area. So I'll probably start in this area and glue it back on that way and then work my way down. Okay, so as far as the materials that you'll need to do the hair, it's the same thing as the 78 mask. This is just mask making latex. And again, this is not liquid latex. There's a difference between liquid latex you get at Spirit Halloween and mask making latex. And you want to get mask making latex. But the first thing you need to do, like I was saying, is you need to cut off this factory kind of line. I just use like a paintbrush and I'm just using like the back of it, and I'm gonna put down a bead of latex. I'm gonna press the hair into that latex and I'm gonna press it in with this and kind of knead that in, let the hair soak it up. And once it gets soaked up and it's stuck there, I can move on. Then once it dries, then I can style it. But again, it should be said that you could do everything to this mask that I did today without taking the hair off, without re-gluing it, and it'll be fine. It'll be a lot faster, a lot easier, and less stressful. And so it's always an option to just leave the hair on and just paint it the exact same way that I did. It will turn out fine. So I didn't need quite as much hair as I thought I was gonna need. So you can see that this part just isn't glued down. But I'm not just gonna grab it and pull it off, because it's still attached to it with a little bit of latex or whatever. Just the tiniest bit will grab it and it's gonna rip all that off. It might even rip off even more of what I did. Don't make the mistake of just trying to pull a big bit off. Just wait till that latex dries and then pull it off. So that being said, I think that it was moderately successful. I'll put it down, I'll take a step back from it. We're gonna take like a couple of these burn ends or something and like put them in like some strategic spots to kind of, you know, because this spot doesn't really look burnt. So I might put a couple of strands, but I do want this like first layer to seem like it's been like kind of burned and, you know, melted away. Okay, so I'm pretty much done gluing any of the hair in. I think I'm done anyways. I'm gonna let it dry for like 5 minutes. Most of it's already dry, but I'm just gonna give it a little longer, because what I'm gonna do as a last step is just go back in with a little bit of that black ink, the heavily diluted with alcohol black ink, and I'm just gonna hit a couple of streaks on the hair, pull it together, and especially these spots like where you can see the latex that I glued. I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't look that bad, but I'm gonna hit it with some black just to darken it up. Basically everything's done, except I wanna just give it a good like 10, 15 more minutes. It's probably been like 30 minutes or so since I first glued on this layer of hair, so it should be pretty good, but I'm gonna wanna grab it and really scrunch this hair up and mess with it, and I don't want it to come off, obviously, so I'm gonna give it another 10, 15 just to be safe, and then I'll kinda style the hair a little bit, and then we'll get some beauty shots, and per your request, we won't use any fancy colored lights. We're just gonna hit it like this with a turntable. All right, so that's gonna do it for this week's Mask Monday. Remember, I don't know all the details about it right now, but we are gonna raffle this mask off. It's gonna be an Instagram raffle. Like I said, I don't know all the details, but just go to our Instagram page. The day that we release this video is when we're gonna post about it on Instagram, and that'll have all the details. Just a typical raffle, and you can win that one. If you're interested in getting either of these two, I don't really feel like gluing the hair back on or finishing them or doing anything else to them, honestly. But if you want these two, then you can send me a DM on Instagram, and then you can just buy a Myers mask from Nightmare Toys. And after we talk, and I know that, because more people than two obviously are gonna hit me up about it. So if you're one of the first two people to hit me up about this, I'll let you know, and then you can buy a mask from Nightmare Toys, and we'll ship you this one, and I'll just include some hair along with it if you wanna finish it. If you don't want it, whatever, but that's how we'll kind of get rid of these ones. And then, as I said before, there's no perfect way to like paint this. We haven't seen the movie yet. We're just kind of doing this for fun. This is how I think it would look. You can see I tried basically 3 different ways. I did this original method where I sprayed the entire thing white, and then I did a weather job, and then I stippled all the brown and the black on top of it. But then I had this flawed copy laying around, so I thought I'd do another test. And this I did pretty much the same way that I did the one that we did today, except I used like a lighter brown color. And so I kind of took what I learned from both of these and kind of took that knowledge and then did my third one. You might like this one the most, you might like this one the most, or that one. But if you don't like any of them, there's always plan D. It's your choice.